Namaste. Welcome to a brand new episode of Organizer Life. His columns, posts, and tweets are known to be laden with wit and sarcasm. But if Arnab Ray is commenting on something, rest assured that you would get an acute and precise reading of the situation, even if it is presented in his characteristic tongue in cheek style. An author, a columnist, and a social commentator, Arnab Ray's stories are as much read as seen on screen, where many of his works have been adapted into commercial cinema. Today, we have the celebrated person with us for a conversation with Organizer Life that is very candid. We are hoping it will be as interesting as his books. Welcome, Arnab, to the Organizer Life studio.
Thank you for having me.
You know, you don't need any introduction. You're very, very visible. You're all over social media. Your books are highly read. You're a very successful author of horrors, dramas, and socially relevant books. You're a noted columnist also for some leading dailies. Your books have been converted into TV series as well. But tell us who Arnab Ray actually is outside of this world of books and social media and TVs and commercial cinema. And what do you do apart from writing such interesting fiction?
So that's a highly existential question, kind of philosophical as to who I really am, where I'm going, and where I've come from. But no, seriously, the thing is that I'm actually in real life, I'm an engineer. I did my engineering here from Jadavpur University, computer science. I did my PhD in computer science from Stony Brook. And that's what I really do. That's my 9 to 5 job that pays for the other life, actually. The great thing about having these two lives is that it lets me be financially free in my other life, because there's a difference between a hobby and a profession. And really, it's not a question of how serious you are. At least for me, I'm serious in both. What distinguishes my hobby from my profession is, in one, I make compromises because of money. I have to, because it what pays the bill. But that gives me the freedom that in my hobby, I don't make any compromise. I'm able to say exactly what I want to say, both in terms of my opinions on social media, as well as the kind of books that I want to write. Because sometimes the books that I write are not what I would call immediately something that a publisher would want to publish. So when I started writing, horror wasn't a thing at all in India. And my first book was it was not even a Churel haunted house
No,
kind
I
of
think
story.
your first book was May I Have.
I know, but the May I Have Your Attention Please at least came from the brand that I'd already
Created,
established.
yes.
So it was not really a risky book for the
But
publisher
it was
to
damn
publish.
fun. Means I've read it and you could identify, you could relate to what you were writing because you even have written about the sari seller abroad. So I could relate to it. So, and I was laughing in my mind that how is he presenting such a perfect picture of what's actually happening out there.
Yes, so I like to observe humanity. But my real thing was I wanted to write horror fiction. I wanted to write mystery. The way I characterize it is I wanted to write the books that I felt I wanted to read, but were not being written. I mean, there was obviously American fiction or British fiction, but they never really captured Indian sensibilities. So, for instance, the latest book that I've written, it's called The Bucket. So, there are a lot of things about the book, but one of the things that's unique about the book is that, for instance, Stephen King in his horror captures America in the 1970s and in the 1980s. So if you look at Stranger Things on Netflix, when they say it's a homage to Stephen King, what it's basically doing, it's basically a Stephen King novel, in the sense you have a number of kids on bikes, unsupervised by their parents, without internet, nobody knows where they are. So all of that was very much a part of growing up in the US in the 80s, 70s. But kids in India can't identify with that. That's not how we grew up. So we grew up with relatives, we grew up in a very different milieu. So there's a huge lacune or gap in terms of even standard horror stories that are not set in haunted houses. And that's fairly standard in India too, but set in the milieu that we grew up in. I mean, may I have your attention, please? Was like that. It is a different take. It is a funny take at the 90s. This is more a terrifying take at the 90s. It's about a murder that happened in the 90s and the ramifications of that murder 30 years later on the lives of four middle-aged men who are now considered to be suspects in that murder. So it is as much about the 90s as it is about what we are today.
Uh, Arnab, when you say that horror wasn't being written, or you don't have too much of literature on horror in India as a genre, but we do have Satyajit Ray delving a bit in horror. You have children's, funny children's stories on the different type of booths, like funny takes. But when I read Shakchunni, which was your book before The Bucket, it was, you were presenting a picture of feudal Bengal, the Bengal that was um, sort of crumbling under the colonizers, and then it had a bit of intrigue. It had a bit of the things that were going wrong in society. So what kind of picture are you presenting in The Bucket this time? Will it be will the backdrop be again from Bengal, or
The background is absolutely Bengal, but it's not about the socio-political milieu. Though there is a part of that. So one of the characters, a father, is an extremely politically connected person in 80s, early 90s Bengal. So his son is the principal accused, and he gets away at that point of time. So there is that. It does come up. Politics
so
does come up.
when you're saying politically, in you're bringing up that politics, so would the person be inclined towards the left
Yes, I mean,
politics?
I don't get into the exact party that he is in, but it's if you know Bengal politics, I think it's pretty easy to understand which political party I'm talking about at that point of time. Because, but the point that I'm trying to say is that there was a kind of immunity to the law that certain people enjoyed, and there are many instances of that in the book, where even the police when the police is intimidated by the father of the principal accused. So 30 years later, when they interview the cop who was the chief investigator. So there were two cops who were the chief investigators, and one of the cops basically says that I was always convinced that the kid did it, but his father, we were so afraid of his father, and he was so well connected, and he would implicitly intimidate me. So we had to question him, not in the police station, but in his house with his father and the lawyers there. So anybody else, we would drag him down to the jail. But for him, we couldn't do that. We had to wait for him to come down and answer our questions. So that is very much there, but it's a very minor part of The Bucket. The Bucket is essentially the reason why I wrote the book, besides the fact that I wanted to write that book for a long time, is that, first of all, most books are primarily, the market is women, mostly women readers. Men don't read a lot of books.
You think so?
Yeah, that's the
But
data.
I see the women are also not reading. The whole day they are scrolling through reels.
Well, the overall market for books has gone down. But even if, like, let's say if 100 people read it, now 10 people read it.
Which is so sad.
That is, yeah, so there's a reason for that. Because ultimately, I don't think that, to come to your question, why people don't read books, I don't think that people want or ever wanted to read books. I think they read books when we were growing up because there was nothing better to do. So what they're looking to do, their overall objective is to be entertained. So now there are, and to be entertained with the minimum amount of brain work possible. So people are looking for what we call today a dopamine rush.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to get dopamine rush is to doom scroll through feeds. And social media, these big companies, their algorithms are specifically done by some of the smartest people in the world to give you this continuous dopamine rush so that you do not scroll away from their app. Books cannot compete with that. Books cannot, even the best book cannot give you that dopamine rush. So that is why the overall market for readership has gone down. But even, and coming back to the original point,
Yeah.
more women still read. So if 100 people used to read, maybe 10 people read, but there's still 8 women and 2 men. So the percentage hasn't gone down. Now, as a result of a predominantly women-centric, most fiction that comes out is targeted towards women.
Okay.
So there are a lot of books that there's Chicklit, for instance, right?
Yes.
It's an entire, and it's fairly well selling. It's not that the authors are women. No, the authors could be men, but the target, the themes are for women. They're mostly for women. So one thing that I've always missed is a book about men. Written, it's not a question of whether it's written by a man, but why do men bond with other men?
You had it in Shakchuni also.
Yes, we had it a little bit in Shakchuni too, but this is exclusively about male bonding. So why do boys bond together? The kind of strong emotional bonds they develop. It's a non-romantic way. It is, so most books.
So you will not call it a lad lit.
No, it is not. It is absolutely not. So most books look through the prism of teenage boys and girls through the prism of romance, or even adults. It is primarily romance. Romance is a very small part of this book. It is actually everything but romance. But there is emotional attachment. There is being dependent on someone emotionally, and so all of that is the real horror. So yes, there is a murder. There's all of that. But the real horror is that as boys, the world is very scary. Okay, so you have studies, you have parental expectations. In these cases, they're all middle class boys. So there is the worry of being poor. Their fathers are saying, you have 3 sisters, what are you doing? Why are you playing cricket? You have to get money to get them married. The pressure of them. So they're pressurized at school. They're bullied. One of them is bullied. One of them. So there's the weight of dreams, the weight of parents, the weight of their own expectations. That's the stress they feel when they're 18 years old. And then the story goes ahead to when they're 50. And it's the weight of their failures, what they haven't been able to achieve. At least for one, the weight of his failed marriage, for the failing career. All of that then comes in. If they've all attained something, but they have also missed, and the horror is that at 50 you realize that this is it. You've basically lived your life.
Yeah.
So those two horrors juxtaposed through the lens of an old murder, all of it.
You are bringing out a very important part that our society don't talk about. The pressures, the expectations from a man right when he's growing up. So do you see yourself in that? Means, have you gone through that also?
Absolutely. So when my daughter, who's been intricately involved, she's 12 years old, in the editing of this book, she's not read the book, but I've read it out to her, and she's given me suggestions on what to do. So she said that all of the 4 characters have a bit of me in them. So yes, absolutely. I mean, it's so obvious that even my daughter, who absolutely doesn't know who I was when I was 18, still recognizes the fact that they speak in a certain way, or they have certain opinions that she knows are mine, but it's reflected in all the 4 characters.
Yeah. So, you were working in the States, an engineer, and you do very serious kind of a job. It sounds very difficult to, engineering people like us. So how difficult was it to get into writing, especially you want to write for the Indian market, for the Indian reader? So how difficult was it, how difficult or easy was it to get into writing?
So, in terms of, first of all, you have to understand and that I never really wanted to be an engineer. So I wanted to write.
Okay. But you had to become an engineer because it was paying well, or because it was a standard those days that no, you have to be an engineer or a doctor or a.
So at least nowadays, kids have a lot of options. At least they have a lot of information as to what is out there in the world. In those days, there was very little information. So you kind of tended to follow the people who you know. That's what you did. And so it's what but I did want to study something else. I was pretty adamant about it.
Okay. What did you want to study?
I actually wanted to study English, history, political science. So I was not sure exactly which one of them, but something in the humanities.
Okay.
Not economics either, because that's what I went to Presidency College for one day. I actually got admission both in engineering college as well as Presidency College together, and I attended both of them together parallelly because I still couldn't decide. My father, who is an economist, wanted me to take economics because he felt that it was kind of a half compromise between engineering and English. It's kind of true. It's kind of halfway there.
And also, I think economics has this whole prestige, snob value. You're an economic. Yeah.
So he wanted me to do that, but the point was I wasn't into it either. So for me, but the way my father put it is that, look, you've done mathematics and science all your life, so you have the choice is that if you want to go into anything, history, political science, you have to be the very best at what you do in order to make a living. There's only room for the top. But if you're an engineer and you become an average engineer, that's also fine.
Okay.
The average engineer is quite financially secure. You don't have to be the best engineer or even near to the best or even above average. Average is fine. So when you encounter, and really at 18 years old, what do you know about yourself?
Yeah.
Nothing,
Yeah.
right? So with science, with engineering, at least I had a pretty decent idea about what is going to happen in the next 4 years.
Okay.
But with this, it was totally unknown. And again,
Means
there was
you
no
had an
Wikipedia,
idea
nothing.
that this is what I need to do to stay relevant for the next 10, 15
I
years.
pretty much knew what computer science was at 18 because I'd done my programming. I knew basics, so I knew, okay, it's going to be more of this. But what is history? What is political science? Again, in an era where there was not Wikipedia, or there was not YouTube lectures, so that I could go over them to see what exactly it was. Again, the total lack of information. I decided to take the safe choice.
Okay.
I don't particularly regret that. I think I did the right thing. But the way engineering helps me to write, I think more than write, it helps me to be analytical. So what I sometimes feel, and that is reflected in my fiction writing, but more in my non-fiction writing, is the fact that it's, again, I don't want to say it's popular, but the fact that people read my non-fiction writing is, I think that I bring in a level of analytical thinking.
Yeah, you're
that-
not over, it's not brimming with emotion. It's
Yeah, so I try to identify the core issue of what a problem is, and I can briefly express it. The funny part is the different thing. That's the different side of my brain. That's not engineering. But engineering allows me. So the difference between science and engineering is that engineering is science in a compressed form. So science is an ideal thing. You contemplate on the nature of the universe. You contemplate if there is one wave function which represents the universe. Engineering has no time for that because it doesn't make any money, it doesn't make any product. Engineering is all about the science of the possible. It is the science of selling. So and sometimes engineers forget that and become scientists, but engineering is all about selling. It is about selling technology. If nobody buys what you do, You're not an engineer, you're a scientist. So that sales mindset, which I actually enjoy, that has kind of helped me to craft. And that's very amenable to social media, right? Because people have very less attention spans nowadays. And I'm not a reels video person. This is not a medium which I understand. So I do understand text and writing because I
Yeah.
grew up reading and writing. So that's the only thing, come to the question, that my engineering background kind of helps me to be better at what I do.
So, uh, you know, when you decided that, okay, now I am fairly successful in my engineering job, so now I want to invest time in writing fiction, non-fiction, whatever. Um, I don't think that time. Uh, I won't say that your political ideology. I won't call it your political ideology, but it's the way you thought. It wasn't that known in the publishing sector, which is in India. The publishing sector is still fairly leftist. Did you have any problem getting your books published, or do you have a problem now when people know that, okay, he has a certain uh, political ideology? Do you think it gets personal that way?
Yes, it is a problem. So in order to understand Indian publishing, you have to understand one thing, that it's not publishing per se. It's a group of about 30 people who go from one publishing house to another, who call. So it's one person in company A goes to company B, goes to company C, and the person who was in company C comes to company A. Many years ago, I saw a graphic, which unfortunately I should have saved, which actually had the names of all of these people with a timeline of where they went and where they joined. And it was tremendously amusing to see how they there was almost a sinusoidal curve of these
Yeah.
people superposed on each other. There was a Fourier series on them. So the problem with Indian publishing is it's not so much the politics of the publishing houses, but it's the politics of the people. And as you can
And also the mindset,
see, so
who they would favor.
so their background, all of them. So why is it political? So again, I'm more interested, rather than saying it is political and leaving it at that, is why it's political. Because you see, most of Indian publishers are from humanities, right? They have to be. There are very few people who come from an engineering background. And humanities is usually taught by leftist professors, wherever you are. So, for instance, it's not even a question of the professor is leftist. The syllabus itself, you learn Marxist
The
authors.
curriculum.
You're learning Foucault. He's part of that curriculum. What are you going to get, right? So your entire worldview is leftist. So it's not that the person sits there and you ask a person, are you leftist? And he said, no, I'm not leftist. I'm a normal person. I'm a political. You don't realize it. That's what you've learned, right? Because it's not
But
science.
it's how the wire is set.
It's not science, right? In terms of, it's not like mathematics. Like I say, well, I learned discrete maths. That's truly not Marxist. That's nothing. But humanities is not like that. So in a way, I understand why it is that way. I'm not blaming them. But the point, what often happens is, yes, I've encountered that many times. There was a time when I actually stopped writing because of that.
No, and also, like when you say you encountered that, does it mean that they were not choosing, or they were not willing to give you that chance, a scope based on what you were writing, the merit of what you were writing, but they were actually overstepping that and seeing, um, or trying to decide that, okay, this person belongs in our camp and this person probably doesn't belong in our camp.
That is, well, first of all, if you belong to anybody's camp, if there is a confirmation bias, then you have an easier way through it. It doesn't really matter what you write. I like you as a person. So with me, that was definitely not the case. So normally you would expect in a commercial, if you're guided by a profit motive, then I wouldn't have had a problem because my books sell well. Again, they're not Chetan Bhagat, but they sell enough
Yeah.
to get the return on investment. So it's, and the thing with Indian publishing, you have to understand, is that they're not run. Most of the bigger houses are not run like a profit making initiative. They don't think of themselves as, let's make the most amount of money. What they're looking for is, it's basically two objectives. The one is, I want to find out the next Booker Prize winning author. That is what makes my career as an editor. I found the next Salman Rushdie. Now, I'm not that guy. The other thing is politically indoctrinated writing. So there are certain
But why
things.
can't you be that guy? That means they are already.
Because I don't write that stuff.
Okay.
Because there are certain formula. Just like Hindi movies had a formula,
Yeah.
these books have to have a certain formula. They have to touch certain things to be considered to be socially relevant. It doesn't matter. So if you've read Shakchuni, you know that it is very socially relevant. It
Of
says
course
a many
it
of,
is.
but it won't be seen that way because it doesn't kind of lead with that. It's not as if, hey, look at page number 30, I've ticked this box. It's not like that. But for the Booker Prize winning kind of books, there's an amazing movie that I strongly recommend everybody sees. If you're interested in this, it's called American Fiction. It was actually nominated for the Oscars, and it's a look at the American publishing world. Exactly the same thing. So the problem that I'm talking about here, it's a very humorous it's a very humorous story. It's a great movie, and it shows exactly what happens when the politics of the publishers essentially override what the author is trying to say, or the author has to, rather than the author writing what the author wants to write, the author is sometimes forced to write what the publisher wants, what the publisher thinks the author should write given his identity. So it becomes a much more complicated thing than, I want to write a story that is simple as that. It says, no, you being you, as in having a different kinds of identity cards, you should only write about this, and what you should write should be this. And if
But
you
that is
don't,
also-
then you're not.
You're kind of blocking the way the writer's mind should freely work.
Yeah. So that is exactly why you should see American Fiction.
Yeah.
So the main humor there is that the publisher wants the authentic voice, and the author realizes that that's the last thing they actually want. They do not want his authentic voice. They want what they think his authentic voice should be. That is the core of the humor, and it's beautifully done. But with Indian publishing, that has been. But I've been fortunate of late to find people who get me in terms of who I am, what I write. But again, the risk of that is, these are people. These are not institutions. So if that person goes to another company, or that person just decides to quit publishing, I'm in trouble again.
Okay.
So that's the reason why I've written a few books quite fast recently, because I've suddenly found a few people, just not and again, as I said, it's the risk of it is just people. The institutions themselves, I'm not so sure about them.
Okay. You were telling me about, graduating to non-fiction. Tell us a bit more about what you plan to do or what you plan to write. Because
Sure.
your fiction is now quite popular, well known. People are reading, we're watching them being adapted on screen. So tell us about what you are writing. Like Sultans of Delhi was adapted, Mahabharata Murders was adapted. So tell us something about your future projects now.
So Shakchuni, the rights have been optioned. So
Okay. So we'll see it on screen soon.
Again, option doesn't necessarily mean it'll come to screen. It just means that somebody has reserved the rights on it by making a payment, so which they renew every year. Then when they buy it outright, even then you're not assured it will make it to screen, but at least I've been paid. Okay. So that's part 2 of it.
But it should be, because it was a very, very cinematic, interesting, exciting, intriguing story. And
so coming to the non-fiction part. So one of the reasons why I want to do non-fiction is Well, technically, I already have written a non-fiction book. It's a medical device cybersecurity book. There are only 2 books on medical device cybersecurity in the world. I've written one of them. So that technically is a non-fiction book, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Even your blog was fairly, it wasn't exactly
No, yes,
fiction.
it wasn't. It was kind of in a twilight zone of fiction and non-fiction.
Yeah.
But my first book.
Yeah.
But this is so this book that, again, tentatively I want to call the Gunda liberal. There's strong opinions from my reader base about this name. Some people love it and some people hate it.
Why do they hate it?
Well, they feel that the word Gunda
Doesn't go with liberal.
it's not. He said they're worried that it'll trivialize what I'm trying to say because it's the name of a very famous B grade movie, which I'm famous for having popularized. So, but it's my brand, so I did want to bring it in a way. But the reason why I like the name Gunda Liberal is because it's really what the book is about. So the book's central thesis, is that classic liberalism. So I used to consider myself at some point of time to be a classic liberal. So what is classic liberalism? Classic liberalism basically says that an individual should be judged both by other people as well as the state by the content of their character, to quote Martin Luther King, not by the color of their skin. With the color of the skin basically is not by their group identity.
Okay.
By how they are as an individual. So whether I like you or not is essentially a function of how you behave with me.
Of course.
I am not interested or who your inalienable properties by virtue of birth are not a consideration. That was what classic liberalism was. And classic liberalism also, there were also some other tenets which I'm not going into. But classic liberalism was kind of built to withstand attacks from those who wanted to use religion as the identity. So who were they against? They were against people who, let's say, who were communal. So classic liberalism was kind of aligned against communal politics. But what happened was that they were not ready for an attack from inside. So the attack came from the progressive part, the progressive wing, and it destroyed classic liberalism. So what I mean by that is that once Marxism collapsed as an ideological form of government with the Soviet Union, some of the university professors, and why am I even concerned about university professors? You'd say, well, who really cares about them? Well, unfortunately, there are some things that society intrinsically trusts. And university, what comes out of universities, is one of them. The way it works is I write a paper. I call it, this is based on a study. If you look at the study, it's by asking 5 people something. Okay, it is not a statistically significant scientific study. The study has not been done for any other reason. I have this idea, which is a dogma. Since I'm in a university, I ask 5 people. A totally non-scientific study now basically validates that hypothesis. I publish it in a publication where everybody else believes in the exact same thing that I do. I intentionally, because I control institutions, don't let anybody who does not agree with me come into the institutions. And if this reminds you of the classic religious structures, it is actually. So they basically came up with saying, no, it is not equality, it is equity. It is not who you are, it is your identity. These are the most important things. And that led to the total collapse. So the choice is, do you intend to try to collect the bones of what used to be classic liberalism and try to put it together like a paleontologist making a dinosaur again? Or do you evolve like the dinosaurs did, into something which is not fully a liberal, but not fully an identity-driven person either. So it's a kind of a halfway. So that's who the Gunda liberal is. So the Gunda liberal recognizes the fact that while I may look at the world as individuals, the world does not look at me as an individual. They look at me as part of an identity.
Yeah.
So I can be naive and say, well, I don't really care how people look at me. I will do the way things I want. That's option number one. Or the option number two is, yeah, sure, I will also look at your identity if I believe you're looking at mine. So I will give as good as I get. Now, that is what Gunda liberal is. The other thing about the book is that it grounds what it says in terms of the individual. And now let me explain what I mean by that. One of the central conceits of Marxism is that Marxism is, and this central conceit is actually present not just in Marxism, but many other places, is that this is the truth. It's truth because, so first of all, for those of you who don't know, what was Marx trying to do? Marx was trying to create a theory of history, just like Newton's three laws, which obviously have a mathematical basis to them because that's exactly how calculus comes in. So what Newton's laws are saying is that given, if I can remember my physics correctly, and I might be wrong, but given the momentum and given the position in space, you can predict everything about a particle. So based on basically two different things, position and momentum, you can say everything about what the particle is going to do. Marx's central conceit is, well, guess what? I can do the exact same thing about history. Of course he can't. That's why it's a failure.
Yeah.
But that's the central conceit. Now, the central conceit comes from the fact that Marx does not consider, it's a very good idea what he puts forward. It's a very innovative idea. It is definitely original. It's not right, but the point is, it is him who's doing it. So the idea that what is truth is a function of the observer. So whatever I write is because I am who I am. It is a function of my own personal biases. So in my opinion, whenever you express your opinion to a general audience, it is very important for them to understand who you are. Because otherwise, if I don't tell you who I am, then what I'm writing will kind of appear as if I am speaking from above, that this is the truth. No, I don't really know the truth. But it is true for me because this is exactly what I see. Now, the fact that the observer is essential for the truth is not just a cool thing that I'm saying. This is what science says. So if you look at quantum mechanics basically says that the entire world, or entire universe, is represented by an equation, which is Schrodinger's equation, which is how the wave function evolves with time. And I know I'm getting way off base here, but the moment you, as the observer, measure something, the wave becomes a particle. So what you see, your truth, the thing you see, so before you saw it, before you were part of the picture, everything is a wave of probabilities. It could be this, it could be that. But the moment you come into the equation, it is definite. It is either here or there. So the Schrodinger's cat example is you opening the box. The cat is either dead or alive. But before that, the cat is in a state of quantum indeterminacy. So the reason why I like to use this analogy is that what you see as truth is entirely a function of you. It doesn't mean that the truth is it's not true. That is not true either. It is true for you. And so if I believe that if everybody followed this, maybe some of the fights and the schisms that we see today in the world wouldn't be there. Because I would say, you know what? This is the way I see it. You don't have to agree with me. I'm pretty sure you don't see it the way I do because you and I haven't had the same trajectory through space and time. You have your own lived experiences. I have my own lived experiences. This is the way I see things.
So, you're going to write on politics in your non-fiction book, like
Yes.
political philosophies, not
Yes.
uh,
Political philosophy. So I am less in, of course, there will be examples. So there will be examples from the growth of Donald Trump. That will be a big thing because that's just almost a history changing thing that nobody anticipated. Uh, but yes, there will be examples. But the main thing is it's a book on political philosophy in the in the I don't want to say in the Marxist tradition of trying to explain everything, but yes, there is some part of that conceit is there. I'm trying to explain why things happen the way they do, why we are in this current world. I'm less interested in this person good, that person bad, because again, yeah, sure, I have my opinions about who is good or bad, but that's not interesting. The interesting thing is why. In this world, there's a word that many people nowadays use in a very different context called closure. My relationship broke with somebody, I want closure.
yeah.
What does that really mean? The real it's a very deeply philosophical thing. Closure means that all we can expect in the world is to understand why it happened. We cannot change very much because there are so many things that are outside our control that we cannot really change the outcome of anything. We may try our best, but we cannot change the outcome of any of the big things in life. Of course, I can change the outcome of whether I want to drink water or not. That, of course. But the big things in life that bring us happiness, no, we cannot change the outcomes. But what we can do is at least try to understand why it didn't happen,
And
why I
also
could never do it.
accept.
Acceptance, the first part of acceptance is understanding why.
Yeah.
There were certain decisions that I took, or there are certain kinds of person that I am, for which that thing was never going to happen anyways. And that level of analytical thinking, it's really a legacy of Greek philosophy, where I think, therefore I am, is basically saying that what defines us as human beings is our ability to think through things. So that's the best we can do.
Arnab, you're a writer. So, who are your peers whose works you really enjoy reading? Means, is there any particular author, Indian as well as international? What kind of books do you read?
So currently the kind of so in terms of influence, in terms of so if you want to talk about influence, my influence is people will possibly poo-poo as somebody not being like worthy of being influenced by. But it's Agatha Christie, and I'll tell you why. Besides the fact that Agatha Christie is the most read author after the Bible, so there you have the validation. So one big thing is when people say, yeah, but that's not art. The problem with that is that there's no definition of what art is, right? The only thing that really can be measured objectively is sales, right? It's popularity. Popularity is the only neutral metric. The other things are, again, your perspective. Whether you consider Satyajit Ray better than Manmohan Desai, I know who I would say is better, but I know that it's useless arguing, because again your trajectory in space time might lead you to think that Manmohan Desai is better than Satyajit Ray, and that's fine. But the only thing is popularity. Who made more money? Who got more people to see their work? So ultimately, in art, what is important is, in a way, because the other extreme is there are many people who will say, well, I don't really care who reads my books. I write because I love to write. And my counter to that is, well, why did you publish it then? Write it in your diary and just keep it. You enjoyed it. Just burn the diary then. No, you definitely want validation.
Of
Right?
course.
So validation please accept the fact that you are writing for validation. It is not wrong to write for validation. So Agatha Christie is, because she has, after the Bible, the most validation ever. So that absolutely makes her my idol. Now, how did she get that validation? So one of the things that's often lost so Agatha Christie's books, when you read them, they're not particularly well-written books. Okay. So by the standards of what constitutes a well-written book, an English literature professor will tell you that they're really badly written books. Well, first of all, I don't agree that they're badly written books. But again, yes, I would say that most of them are badly written books. Some of them are very well-written books. Like And Then There Were is an extremely well-written book. But the thing that she gets right is pacing. Why have so many people read it? The reason why she gets it is it's very well paced. It establishes very interesting characters. It's not long. It's not like a Stephen King 700-page book. So you could read it on a flight. And it does say something about the human condition. So again, many people would say, what? I read Agatha Christie. I don't think I found anything there about the human condition. Well, you haven't read it that deep then. So for me, Agatha Christie is definitely one of my... another person who, of course, I'm a huge fan of as a horror writer is not Stephen King. Actually, I mean, I like Stephen King, but I also feel that in many ways he's overhyped. He's not that great. He's written some good books, but even those good books could have been 200 or 300 pages shorter, and it would have been a better book. But my real idol in horror writing is Edgar Allan Poe. And the reason why Edgar Allan Poe is that Edgar Allan Poe usually gets to the heart of what horror is. See, when you write a book on horror, you ultimately cannot make anybody scared. It's impossible to scare somebody by words on a page. Because when you want to get scared, you have to have a sense of danger. Now, even watching a movie, you don't have a sense of danger, right? But you can simulate it through sound, music, jumps, yes.
Yeah.
But with books, all it can do is that it can leave you with a sense of disquiet. So, Edgar Allan Poe, and again, it has to say something terrifying about the human condition. So, when the first COVID lockdown happened in the US, I read to my daughter. She was 8 years old at that point of time. I read to my daughter an Edgar Allan Poe short story called The Mask of Red Death. So in The Mask of Red Death, because none of us knew what a lockdown was, right? So when they say can't go out, they'll close the office. So The Mask of Red Death is basically Edgar Allan Poe writing about a lockdown. So the story essentially is that there is a prince. So there's the plague is killing everybody in England. So in Europe. So this prince, he decides to shut his palace off in a lockdown and essentially party through the night till the plague passes. So he gets all his friends in, and they said, we will stock it with food, lock it down, nobody gets in, nobody gets out, and we will party through. And each of the rooms has a certain color. So the light comes in and it's filtered through. There's a yellow room, there's a blue room, and there is a clock and I'm spending all this time just to say this is what horror is. So there's a clock which at the 12 it strikes, and it starts off with, when it strikes, all these people who are happily partying and singing, all of them feel a sense of fear, and everything stops for a while till the gong dies out, and then they start. So what does that mean? The thing is that they're all sensing death. The clock is basically the countdown to their deaths. So they feel it, but they don't understand it yet. And then somebody, a strange person wearing a mask, comes in who nobody can recognize, and he walks through each of the rooms pursuing the prince till everybody like jumps on the guy trying to like, who's this stranger, and says that person is the plague, actually that's death. And so the plagues come in, right? So the basic thing is that it will come in. You can't lock death out. So that's a terrifying thing to read to an 8-year-old just before lockdown. But that's the greatness of Edgar Allan Poe. If you read his short stories, each of these short stories really tap into one of our most elemental fears. There's a poem called The Raven. So the Raven's essential thing is that ghost stories, horror itself, is a form of comfort. The reason why we like horror, why we read horror, is because it's not because we want to be terrified. It's because we want to feel happy. Because ghosts mean that the people we love, they don't die. They're there. We can't see them, they can see us. So that is a comfort to us. The real thing, the real horror is that when you die, there is nothing left. That's really what The Raven is. The Raven story is that the poem, actually in my bedroom back in California, the pillow that I have is a custom printed pillow that has the lines of Raven on it. I see it every day before. So it basically says that death is final. There is nothing beyond that.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about cinema now. You grew up watching movies of the 90s, commercial, a little loud, a little weird, a little fun. So you're an ardent fan. You've always written. So how like what made you gravitate towards them? What were you enjoying, and did it affect the way you were thinking, writing, functioning? Like what why are you so enamored of the Hindi films of the 90s 80s?
So when I was growing up in Bengal, there was an obsession with a word called culture. So culture meant anything but Hindi movies. Culture meant Rabindra Sangeet, culture meant Satyajit Ray, culture meant Sri Gangopadhyay. And English was fine, but Hindi was an absolute no-no.
No, it continues to be that, like,
I don't think it's that bad anymore,
Yeah.
but in those days it was. So my love of Hindi movies, and especially the worst kind of Hindi movies, was kind of my rebellion as a teenager to this very constricting. And here's the thing, Rabindra Sangeet, to be very honest, if you're 12 years old and the song is about God came to my door on a stormy night, what does it even mean? You understand the meaning of this when you grow older. These are philosophical poems about loss. When he's love, prema, bhakti, they're both the same. See, these things don't mean anything to a 12-year-old, right? You just listen there. The beats aren't peppy. It's not dance music. I obviously understand the words, but they don't mean anything. While I'm a disco dancer, Zindagi Mera Gana, yeah, that the beat is great. I understand what they're saying. D se hota hai dance, I se hota hai item. Yeah, I totally get it. So the thing about art again is that you have to get it. So that appealed to me way more than Rabindra Sangeet at that point of time. Even the kind of movies. Satyajit Ray at least made movies that were understandable. But if you see Mrinal Sen, they're not, I would say they're not meant for kids, they're not even meant for adults in many cases. But
very
definitely
depressing.
They're just like, it's not meant for kids, not in an inappropriate way, but it is not something that any child is not interested in, capitalists destroying society. That is not something that a 12-year-old kid who wants to eat pantua and rasgulla isn't really interested in at all. It doesn't appeal to that person. So at least Satyajit Ray had like Gupi Gain, Bagabain. They at least
Bagabain.
had some
And
movies.
some entertain,
Even
yeah.
Shonar Killa.
Shonar Killa, and then you have Mahapurush, which is
Yes, so they were funny movies.
Yeah.
The thing about Satyajit Ray was that even though he made artistic movies, his movies were never not fun. It was always fun. You could always watch them without understanding the art behind it. There would be some movies like Charulata, which are an exception, but most of them are very, very entertaining, especially in the, like, even if you don't understand anything about Pratitwandi, just that macho thing of going in the interview, throwing the table over, like that's the Bachchan part of, that's the most Bachchan thing ever in a Bengali movie. And Dhriti Ban is amazing. So even as an angsty teen, you get that part, but Meenacha, you don't get anything. So Hindi movies were kind of appealed to me at that point of time, more as an act of rebellion, but also because there was really nothing else to do. There was no computer games to play or anything. So Hindi movies, and then the cable wala used to play these movies. So on Sunday, I would just sneak in and watch those movies while my parents slept. So this was like kind of like a forbidden hush-hush thing that was really not fully approved, but was not that bad either. So it was fairly mainstream. And also I have a very photographic memory for these things. And a lot of people did see this, but they don't remember them.
Yeah.
But I do. When something
Or maybe
I truly
they
enjoy,
remember, but they're too embarrassed to acknowledge.
maybe, but these things, you know, I can, like, when I was coming by a car and this guy the first opening beat of Akele Hai To Kya Gum Hai, just the music, just the dung, and I immediately recognized the song. It like, I wasn't expecting it. These things are like seared into my mind.
Yeah, and
So-
you feel so good about it now. Like, I listen to a lot of 90s music and I feel so good about it.
I do. I love listening to 90s music. And the reason why I love listening to 90s music is that, and it's, I guess, a reason why people, when I was young, like listen to KL Saigal's music, is because music, food, these are kind of things that take you back to another time. So you're even though you're physically here, you're not physically here. You're physically you're mentally or emotionally at a different place. So music, food, these are the kinds of things which act as a conduit to certain parts of your memory. So that's why I like them now. But yes, I absolutely loved, and I think there was a time that I'd essentially seen every Hindi movie that was released. Like I do mean every Hindi movie that was released for a few years. Yes. Anything that came out, I would have seen it either on the big screen or on VCR or on cable.
Yeah. So I'm going a little away from like what I want to eventually arrive at. This thing about not acknowledging that perhaps many other people have seen the movies that we are right now talking about. Currently in Bengal, the whatever shown in the current Hindi film industry or in the mainstream celebrity world, it influences a lot of youngsters in Bengal, but they don't want to acknowledge it. They try to dress like that. They dance to that kind of music, like the current Hindi music, but somehow they don't want to acknowledge that, okay, we are influenced by Hindi cinema. What is this hypocrisy? Do you sense a kind, like I sense this hypocrisy a lot? Means they want to talk about, we are a land of Tagore and we are a land of Robindra Sangeet and Kazi Nazrul Islam, but they are not actually doing anything similar to Robindra Sangeet or Kazi Nazrul Islam, except for on Tagore's birthday, they will maybe dress up in a Shadashari Lalpar and do that. But primarily the videos, the reels and whatever we are noticing, it's all Hindi cinema. So
I think there is a huge correlation between economic development and culture. So even if you look today in India, the best movies are coming from some of the most economically developed regions of India, like the Telugu film industry, Tamil film industry. Their,
Malayalam.
their budgets, forget everything else. Their budgets dwarf anything that a Bengali movie. And I've been involved with a Bengali TV series, so I know very well about the amount of money we're talking about. We're talking about things with like many zeros after it. It's not a question of half, 1/3. No, I'm saying 10 times, 20 times, 100 times. So once there's not a lot of money to go around, there's also not a lot of originality to go around.
Of course, yes.
So Bengal Renaissance happened when Kolkata was also the financial capital of India. It was the richest city. It was the British. Then there were Rabindranath Tagore is a rich man, right? So that kind of zamindari feudal wealth that Bengal had, Bengal did have wealth. Now you can say it was illegitimately gotten, and that's the morality of it. But they were rich people, and they did produce great art. And then redistribution happened. Their lands were forcibly taken away, given away, and basically everybody became poor under the communists. And that basically ended the Bengali dominance in original art, in my opinion. That's why Hindi is only left. If you hear Bengali, forget now. Even in 2004 and 5, this first songs that I heard, Ei hawa silky silky, bole jai baate dil ki, cholo na bheshe jai joare. What is this? Who talks like this? And not just one, many. Because that is what Bengal is now. Because it cannot commercially produce a song with pure Bengali words, because the market, why does it have both Bengali and Hindi in it? Because it's trying to appeal to the non-Bengali speaking people in Kolkata. Yeah. They don't want them, because they cannot make a movie that can work financially by just catering to Bengali audience. So, and in a way, Srijit, I would say, the reason why Srijit Mukherjee, in his first movie, where one of the main things is talk in pure Bengali. One of the reasons why I believe that was that he bucked that trend. You will not find this kind of Hindiisms in his movies. He makes pure Bengali movies. Whatever you may think whether something works or not, but he at least does that.
Yeah. But does it also mean that the talent, like, they are kind of shuffling and rejigging Ray's formulas, Satyajit Ray's stories, and trying to present it in a different way? Like, I just watched Eken Babu Benarase Bibishika or something. It is actually a rehash. They're trying to copy ideas from Joy Baba Felunath and trying to present it and making a mockery of it, basically. So does it mean that Bengal is lacking the talent now? What
no,
is
Eken Babu, any cases, I've always felt is an off-label Jotayu. Right?
Jotayu, yes. There is no originality. Everything is either taken from Ray or it's Tagore. How much of rehashing is possible?
No, so it comes back to what I said. If you don't have the budget, so if I have a budget, right, I don't have to do derivative work. A derivative work is cheaper to do, because all you do is you look at something and you say, this thing worked, change it sufficiently so that it looks like something that's new. That is less risky to do, and that costs less money to do. The real, and actually Anurag Kashyap said this, and I 100% agree with him, said that it's all about, look at this, we want this. But anything that is truly original does not have a predicate that you can point to. It is not India's this. It is not Squid Games Desi style. No, that is itself. The moment you say Desi Squid Games, it is a derivative. You can change it all you want. Maybe a lot of people will not understand that you changed it enough. And you're successful in that, but you know exactly where you're getting it from, right? Until and unless, and this is also permeated into the Hindi film
Yeah,
industry.
I was coming to that.
So the problem with, so one of the biggest problems with Hindi movies now, and the reason why I don't watch them anymore,
Which was the last Hindi movie you watched?
I can't remember. That's the terrible thing. When you just ask me, I can't even remember which was.
Seriously?
I cannot remember which is the last Hindi movie I actually watched. Like, I can remember some Hindi movies I've watched, but those may not be the last Hindi movies I watched, like Rocky Rani, but they're like 2 years old. But I've definitely should have seen something. But I've seen. But yeah, I actually I watch web series. Watch Saw Pata Lok 2 and stuff. So web series are I mean, there are some web series that have kind of created a niche for themselves, but I think movies, since the question was on movies, the question is that movies that are made today have lost the sensibility of what it is that made them unique. So let me try to explain what I mean by that. It is not as if the 90s movies were original plot-wise. Raja Babu isn't a very original plot, but Raja Babu is cinematically, and I know that people will be shocked when I say it, a masterpiece. In terms of, I can sit and deconstruct each of the songs. Look at where the beat drops. There's a rustic part of it that, you see, that is not an experience you can get through Netflix. You can watch a South Korean drama, but you can't watch, Shakti Kapoor with wearing banyan and chaddi and doing all of that. Yeah, it is rustic, but it is a unique experience. What Hindi movies have lost is that unique aspect of it. There is nothing in a Hindi movie that I will watch today. Remember, I have to spend 500 to $1,000 to go to this theater to watch it, right? So it is not just an investment in my time, it is investment of money. Why would I watch it there when I can actually, in the bucket, there is a discussion on this. Why would I exactly this? Why would I go on? I could watch it at home. Maybe Pathan was, now that I think of it, maybe Pathan was the last movie that I watched. But yes, what was that movie about? Like, if I wanted to watch Money Heist, I've already seen Money Heist. Okay, Jawan Pathan, I've just seen that movie millions of times, and I've seen it done better actually in terms of action. So I'm not a Shah Rukh Khan fan. I mean, there was a time I was, but I'm not going to watch anything just because Shah Rukh Khan is in it. So this is what Hindi movie has become. They've essentially become the star vehicles.
Yeah.
So it's just the only people who come to see it are Shah Rukh Khan fans or Salman Khan fans who really don't care for the movie. They just want to spend 3 hours with their favorite star. Okay, going through different things that they're accustomed to having seen them do. So, and that's the thing, Hindi movies have lost their, I'm not saying that plot-wise they were very original in the 90s, but at least they were memorable. When Sunil Shetty
I think
says,
the music was better.
Sunil Shetty says, Mera do baap and everything. See, nowadays there are no dialogues you will ever remember. See a movie, sit through them. Is there anything that you remember from that movie? You don't.
I don't. Means even the music is bad.
Agnipath, you do. It's not a terribly original movie, but you do remember everything in terms of the two things. Firstly, the dialogues, the way they are written, and the way they're delivered. Nowadays, most of these new heroes can't deliver dialogues because they just don't understand. They think that it is very cheap, or when they do it in a mock way. It is as if, oh, I'm appealing to the Sobo crowd. It's like, look at how gauche all of this is. Okay, so it's the new version of Unchi Hai building. That itself is basically a desecration. You're doing neither. You are neither doing anything original, nor are you really paying homage, because you don't believe in you don't think it's good. Yeah. You're doing it to make
You're
fun of it.
Basically a little embarrassed.
Yes, you're embarrassed of it, right? So that You cannot produce art or you cannot produce anything of any lasting value if you do not believe in what you're
I
doing.
think it's just like, it's like those trending songs. They trend for a week, everybody's dancing to them, and then next week there's another song that has come, and then again and everybody's dancing. So trends don't last. Trends are fleeting. They're just happening. I think even social media has affected the way we watch films or the way films are being made. Everything is very flaky. Everything is.
So I think most people are realizing that you cannot, because of social media and reels, a 3 hour movie by itself. Like there was a time when people used to say that movies are destroying books. Now reels are destroying movies because people really want that dopamine rush. And even a 3 hour movie is never going to give them the dopamine rush. So you had like test cricket become one day cricket, become T20, become T10. So it's what does that say about humanity? The thing is that everything, and if you look at even a reel, right, you'll see that one of the standard templates of a reel is the beat drop and the costume change, right? So that that itself, so in a movie you have a 3 act. In a reel there's a 2 act. There is like the first part, in 30 seconds the second part. So that place where that thing happens is where the dopamine hits you. And so once you get, so this is like a Pavlovian dog experiment. Once you get used to it, once 3 months, you expect the dopamine to hit you every 15 seconds, it has to hit you every 15 seconds. And so you become addicted to it. You can't watch a movie anymore because a movie feels boring at that point of time.
Not if it's
No, so that is the thing. Your attention is this is like, changing you at a much deeper level, these algorithms. So that's why people
that's
don't
why
read
people
books,
say
what
that
watch
social
movies.
media has actually altered the DNA
Yes, absolutely,
of
absolutely,
society. Yeah.
absolutely. It has changed the nature of politics itself. The fact that one of the reasons why Trump is so popular is that Trump is able to express his political ideology in tweets. You're not going to when Obama came, the main thing was, oh look, he talks so well. Look, yes, we can. He's such a magnetic orator. The reason why he defeated Hillary Clinton was, Hillary Clinton was boring. She came across as, somebody who was a career politician. And Obama, he had inflection of voice. He had the way he moved his hands and the way. Trump, Obama can't do it now anymore because nobody would even listen to him. Because Trump, it's a remarkable thing about him. He understands the reels thing. He's been able to do for politics what reels have done. So people might think that he is making unhinged tweets, but the real reason he's doing it is he is giving his base that dopamine rush within 10 seconds. Any Trump tweet is an experience.
Yes, it is an experience, but hasn't he also sort of, people who used to think were actually supporting him are actually thinking that, okay, but now are a little skeptical about how he's behaving or the decisions he's
Well,
taking.
if anybody, well, I don't think he's changed his behavior. So if your support of Trump was basically because he said things that aligned with what you believed in, then well, the joke's on you. He wasn't saying something because he believed in it. He just was saying it because it was in his best interest to say it. He's an absolute blank slate. So now he's saying things that don't align with you. So you're like, wait, something's changed in Trump. No, nothing's changed in Trump. He's exactly the same person. So maybe the only thing that has changed is that in the first term, uh, Trump was surrounded by a lot of people who essentially prevented him from doing what he wanted to do. He stumbled into the presidency. He wasn't expecting to win. Nobody expected him to win. He didn't expect to win either. So, being a president is not something which you can come from a reality TV show and just do. You can't, right? So, at that point of time, he was essentially being guided by a lot of people who were making him do things, who were manipulating him again to do the things that they wanted to get done. By the time he came the second time, he had learned his lesson. And also, he was in the political wilderness for 4 years. So, that gave him the time to now actually come back with a much better understanding of what he wanted to do. So, that's why his second term is much more action packed and much more revolutionary, I would say. In a good or bad way is up to you, than his first term. And so if the revolution part of it is causing people discomfort, then my response is he was the same person last time. It was just last time there were other people who were controlling.
Okay. So, Arnab, coming back to the Bengali film industry, because you were talking about it, a lot of people say that the Bengali film industry and the way it's operating, the actors, the directors, the movie makers, everybody, they are highly being controlled by the Mamata Banerjee government in the state. Do you think that's how it's happening? Like the kind of movies that's coming out, the propaganda?
No, I don't. First of all, people tend to think that there is a design behind everything. First of all, the movie making union has always been run by the ruling political party. It used to be the CPM before, now it's Trinamool Congress, right? So there are certain things that are a given. It's not a Trinamool Congress thing or a CPM thing. It's whoever rules has control. So they have control over, for instance, so one of the big things in Bengal is Nandon, which is the government theatre. Which the reason why it's important is because the tickets there are subsidized tickets, right? So getting Nandon as a place to release your movie is a financial boon for you. And again, normally this wouldn't be a problem with Hindi movies, but Bengali movies, given their very low budgets, this often is what stands between a failure and a success, right? Whether you get Nandon or not. It's pathetic, unfortunately, but that's the way things are. So yes, those are places where, of course, your political pull. Two movies might get released on the same day. One movie is helmed by a Trinamool Congress politician, and so that will get Nandon. That is not, and again, that has always been there. I think it is there in everywhere. But in terms of ideological control, no. First of all, I don't believe there.
But if there is no ideological control, you see, none of the actors or intellectuals or people associated with the movie industry actually speak about the wrongs that are happening in the state. Like nobody really spoke about the Murshidabad violence. Somehow there is this very controlled. Nobody comes out and condemns what's happening, or if there is any like the Arjikor case, nobody really came out and protested.
Did Arjikor? A lot of people did. That is not true. Murshidabad, yes, maybe. But Adhikary, there was widespread across Bengal. Even celebrities came out to protest. And they were not protesting vaguely. They were protesting against the government. So, again, you have to understand that most Bengali artists are not Trinamool Congress either. They're CPM. It's not as if Trinamool Congress that they're Trinamool Congress. So they're Trinamool Congress now because of fear. But the real sympathies are with the Communist Party of India. So,
but we didn't find anybody actually coming out and condemning what happened in Murshidabad.
So for that, the thing with condemning it in Murshidabad is that the thing is that for right or wrong, people in Bengal don't blame Mamata Banerjee for Murshidabad. They don't blame her. They don't think that there is something which she could have done. The other one, yes, absolutely. There's everybody blames Trinamool Congress government
But why
for the state.
not blame her? Because it's her state, and it means she's the chief minister. And what happened in Murshidabad
First of
was
all, there is. So when you talk about Bengali film, so Bengal is a state which is very Kolkata centric. There's no other big city really. So things that happen outside Kolkata are kind of out of sight, out of mind. So Murshidabad might be a big thing for people outside because of the ideological thing.
that's quite unfair because
But in Kolkata, anything that happens outside Kolkata is not a big deal. It has never been. Things that happen in Kolkata. So rather than looking, I think it's more a distance, and to be honest, it happened to poor people. No matter what the communists will tell you,
but it happened to Hindus, the
that
poor
is
Hindus.
the Hindu aspect. The notion of a Hindu identity is a very different. Bengalis experience it in a very different way than what somebody in Delhi would feel is a Hindu identity. The fact about, and that this will also be covered in my book, is the very hetero. I don't want to use the word heterodox, but I can't think of any other word right now. But the very heterodox experience of what Hinduism is, that Hinduism is not experienced in the same way, which is one of the big problems with political Hinduism. So, the Hindutva is that Abrahamic envelope of this heterodox experience, which is the political part.
And so is that why there is this resistance towards this wearing your Hindu identity on your sleeve in Bengal?
First of all, there are people.
Because in villages and all, you do have Kali Pujo and Manasha Pujo and
Yes, it's not that people. So those are not considered to be. So there's political Hinduism and there is ritualistic Hinduism. That is ritualistic Hinduism. So the irony is that many of these Marxists, they go and do Durga Puja. It's not as if they obey that Marxist part that idols don't exist. I don't worship idols. No, they actually do worship idols, and they do it with bhakti. It's not that they're communists in that respect. Well, there could be some communists who don't. I'm not saying there aren't, but most of them don't. But they don't feel that level of kinship
with the northern side.
with anybody outside Kolkata. The kinship is mostly cultural and literary. The experience of Hinduism to them is a geographic experience. It is, and you would find this in other places too. So, for instance, well, it's a long thing, so I'm not going to go into it. But the thing about but let's focus on Bengal. So in Bengal, because of the Brahmo movement, the whole notion of Hinduism was the way North India experiences it was dissolved by. So how do we experience a religion? Like different people experience religion in different ways. For most Bengalis, the religious thing is Durga Puja. That is the most religious thing we do and we love to do. But we do not experience it in terms of culinary restrictions. We are very different from other parts of India. So again, our Hinduism is tempered with the Brahmo, Rabindranath Tagore, Satyajit Ray. All our cultural icons are quasi not Hindu actually. So this is the reason why, let's say Ram Navami, so the BJP strategy of Ram Navami is a more Hindu thing, which is more quintessential Hindu, which is why it is uncomfortable for many Bengalis. Because Durga Puja isn't that. no Bengali will ever say they're uncomfortable with Durga Puja. I mean, of course, Durga is Kali is a militant. It's not a problem. Nobody will even say that or think that. It won't even come to their heads, right? If they think through it, then they might realize that, wait, hold on. But no, they don't, because it is part of their culture. The way we experience religion, we experience it through what we heard our parents and grandparents. Ram Navami, they didn't hear it, right? How did it come in? It came through Shubhendu Adhikary, Dilip Ghosh. That's the problem there.
So you're saying there's a problem there. So then how does BJP make inroads? It means how do they make people of Bengal understand that if you don't feel a bit of kinship with the Hindus all over, then the state of West Bengal is in a mess.
The problem with BJP is that in Bengal is that their messaging is, in my opinion, the messaging is not developed by Bengalis. The messaging is developed somewhere else. Any product has to be marketed to the market, right?
Of course.
The same marketing strategy that might work in another state will not work here, right?
Of course.
So the problem is that one of the things that the BJP has to do and hasn't done, it's not that they didn't try, they did try that, is that they need to have a strong personality. Right now,
In the state. Maybe a stronger face.
Somebody who has, let's first look at it, somebody who hasn't come from Trinamool Congress, let's say. Okay.
No turncoats allowed.
Somebody who is core, so the fact is that if you are a party that leads with their ideology, you're saying, look, our main interest isn't who is the chief minister. We represent an ideology, right? Well, okay, so fine. Then you can't take anybody who comes from the other party 3 months before the election and give him a ticket. Then you are diluting your own message.
Yes.
You're saying ideology doesn't matter, I'm here to win, right? So lead with that. Or say, no, we are not about ideology, we are just another political party. We are Trinamool Congress, new version. Okay. Then you can do it. Then you can have these guys, and if you follow Bengal politics, they shuttle from this party, that party. So that is a big problem. One of the things about Mamata Banerjee. So what was Mamata Banerjee's biggest USP? At a time when I grew up, there was no chance in hell for any party other than CPM in Bengal. Nobody existed. All the Congress guys who were technically their opposition was essentially in the CPM's pocket. They were basically told, look, this is your area. You take money from the vegetable vendors here. You do not go out of your area. We will not come into your area. This is the people who Mamata Banerjee at that point of time called coconuts. They were green on the outside, red on the inside. So Mamata Banerjee was the only person who never ever compromised. She got hit on the head. You have to get hit on the head. Okay. In order to, when something is this entrenched, people need to see that this other person isn't a guy who just shuttles between parties, okay, actually believes in what they do. And Mamata Banerjee did. Whatever you may think about her, she believes in what she has done. She is not compromised.
No, I agree with you here, Arnab, but also coming from Kolkata, I have grown up in a place called Park Circus, which used to be a cosmopolitan area. We had Bengali Hindus, we had Christians, we had Muslims, we had everybody living in that area. It was very cosmopolitan and a very, very happening place. Over the years, it's become completely Muslim. You know, you can't enter, you don't want to live in that area. So aren't the Bengali Hindus thinking on those lines that, slowly our areas are being sort of overtaken, our homes are being bought out, the minorities are just spreading. You have a Lady Brabon college, it's right in the middle of Park Circus, and they don't feel really safe. Those girls don't feel really safe when they are walking out of college and all. There are issues, there are safety issues.
But the thing is, they're Bengalis, right? The Bengali identity is more important to the Bengali
Than the Hindu Muslim thing.
Absolutely. It has always been the case. It has always, now whether somebody might find it frustrating, that's a separate thing. But the Bengali identity, the fact that you said that you were uncomfortable with this, is not a common sentiment among Bengalis. If it was a common sentiment, then Trinamool Congress wouldn't win with this level of sweeping majority. It is not common. So,
But isn't she winning because, she's got this, there are talks about her rigging, and she's doling out freebies and money and.
see, everybody doles out freebies. There's Ladli Behna. It's not as if he's the only person who's figured this out, right? Everybody doles out free. I don't think rigging happens. I don't believe rigging happens in these elections. I don't believe rigging happens in those elections. So that it's rigged, she bought electorates, well, everybody does it. There's nothing that she does that other people don't do, right? Good or bad, it's the same thing. The reason why she wins, again, is it is because the other party just doesn't understand Bengal. It is a strategic failure. It is not run. Bengal is not run. The political strategy is not run by people who, first of all, understand the Bengali mind. And so I see things like during the last elections when eating meat was brought up in the national elections. Now, I said, why would you bring that up? You're trying to win in Bengal, right?
We eat meat.
Yes. So if you didn't bring it up, it was not even an issue, right? It is not as if, okay, somebody takes a strategic calculation that by bringing up meat, I will get more votes in this state. I will lose a few there, but it doesn't matter. Overall, I gain. If that was the thing, I get it. But you just generally bring it up. And this is the single biggest concern that Bengalis have about BJP, that if the BJP comes to power, there'll be no more meat, there'll be no more fish. Okay. Now you can say this won't happen. It doesn't matter. Well, okay, if it doesn't happen, then why would you even say that just before the elections? So these kinds of things, it's not a question of, if you're serious about winning, right? If you're serious about winning, first have people who are ideologically solid, like Mamata Banerjee was. Have them have a personal brand, right? Mamata Banerjee took years
to build that
brand. Decades, that's what I was trying to say. Decades of consistent struggle before people realized that this person was serious. Trinamool Congress is essentially made up of CPM turncoats. They were all CPM people. Once they realized that this person has the passion. So she couldn't match Jyoti Basu, by the way, who, if he had lived, would still have beaten her. Because Jyoti Basu understood. Because Jyoti Basu was, again, a figure just like her. Buddhadev wasn't. Buddhadev was maybe in Bengal's best chief minister ever. Very, very good human being. But he wasn't a politician. He couldn't stand. Jyoti Basu could stand up to Mamata Banerjee. Buddhadev couldn't. And that's where she just basically destroyed. And Buddhadev's failure in the sense was that the CPM rank and file looked at Buddhadev and looked at Mamata Banerjee and felt that no, this person can't stand against her, really. And so they left before she won. See, that's how she won. It's not as if they left after she won. They left before she won. So in order for the BJP to do that, first of all, they need that person to take the carpet under.
Yeah, so
which they
a
cannot
character.
do. They cannot do so. They only take people who turned from Trinamool Congress, right? And they take people who will not win in Trinamool Congress, right? The reason why they turn is because they're not getting seats in Trinamool Congress. So if you can't get the seat in Trinamool Congress, how do you think you'll get the... So these things are so elementary in their strategic miscalculations that once this happens, you're like, of course it's going to happen. It's not a question of why Bengalis seem to be a very different beast. Well, there are some things are true, but food is very important to Bengalis. Bengalis don't, the Bengali aspect of it subsumes religion. The entire Bangladesh agitation was, now things have gone bad after that, but the entire thing was that the entire thing about the Bangladesh agitation was the Pakistanis felt that you're Muslim, that's the first identity, your Bengali comes second. They said, no, Bengali comes first, Muslim comes second. We don't want to be part of your Muslim country. We will be a Muslim and a Bengali country, but not your country because you're basically Punjabi first. That's who you are. So this was against Punjabi imposition. So as you can see, this is a country, this is a culture that is extremely passionate about their language, extremely passionate about their language and about their way of life, which is distinct. And then the reason is that even the kind of rulers that we had in the Middle Ages were much more syncretic than in other parts of India. There was not that level. The real communal violence actually happened in Bengal during partition. There was never anything like this before in Bengal. So there was a lot of communal amity, and it was the Bengali language that was basically the shock absorber. And it still is. I would say it still is. So why does Mamata Banerjee go for culture so much? It's not as if she understands strategy way better than they do, because she understands that her biggest thing is to show to her constituents that, hey, I am firmly Bengali. Now, yeah, maybe my singing isn't all that great, but I sing in Bengali. I do Nojrul poems. I might get it wrong, but I do it. Is Shubhendu Adhikary doing it? No, he isn't. So people might look at it and they consider it endearing. They say, okay, she's Bengali at least. And that will always trump, unless, as I said, unless you have another person who is BJP who can redefine things. He said, no, it is not Bengali, it is this. But that person has to work for a certain number of years, has to have that persona, has to do the things, has to do street politics to that extent. That's why I said Dilip Ghosh was actually did the street politics part, I would say. But even he has had problems with the party, right? So it's an organizational problem more than anything else.
Yeah. Arnab, you kind of stay in the States. You moved there long ago, and you keep visiting India. Over the years, how do you think India has changed? Do you see any perceptible changes? Has it become better?
I think over the years, India has become, of course, so the first thing is, as a scientist, there is no control group, right? So in order to say that this is better, so when you do a drug trial, you have some people who don't take the drug, who take placebo. And you have somebody who takes a drug and you show, okay, the people who took the drug did statistically better than those who didn't take it, right? So I don't know what would have happened if we had taken a different branch. But the good thing about India that I see is that, of course, there's a great advance over the 90s. But you can say, well, that would have happened anyways. But I think that what we have now is a more confident India in terms of who we are. That we at least recognize that the Indian identity, and again, I have no problems with people fighting over what the Indian identity is. The Indian identity equal to the Hindu identity? Is the Indian identity, quote unquote, a secular identity? I think we will never agree as to what it is, and that's fine. But the fact that the Indian identity is distinct from the Western identity, that we are not essentially brown British people, which is the Nehruvian ideal of what we are, what we should have been. We are not that anymore. We've discovered in many ways that we have a unique culture. For instance, many people today understand that the word secularism itself comes from the Christian church. It is not, the word secular by definition is a religious term, right? When we grew up, we didn't understand this. And this is not just a, oh, I read this on Wikipedia kind of thing. No, this is important to understand. It is important to understand that many of the things that we consider to be ours isn't actually ours. It is what we have been conditioned and trained. It is exactly how dogs are trained, right? So you give the dog a treat, then you don't give the dog a treat, the dog still does it. The dog thinks the dog is acting out of free will, but it isn't. It has been conditioned to do it. But the fact that we as a nation, I'm not saying change everything. I'm not in favor of let's just go back to the way India used to be. No, I firmly believe in progress, not in terms of progress as in scientific progress. I think that humanity progresses in terms of the things it considers right or wrong. There was a time in which the world considered owning people as slaves to be right? And we now consider that to be abhorrent, and that is a good thing. It doesn't mean that we go back to owning people. So what I'm trying to say is that, but it is also important for us to understand. For instance, example is when we grew up, the history that we were taught was essentially a sanitized version of history that was given to us not because it was the truth, but because some adults in the room felt that we would not handle the truth, to quote Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. So, of course, it was an exercise in futility, because once the internet came, people could just go and just read about it and see. The problem with trying to hide it is that now people not only realize that we were lied to, but they also think, where did we get lied to, right? So they start questioning the foundations of things they knew to be true. So what I'm happy and what I feel, I'm not so impressed by the malls and stuff, right? That is very perfunctory, on the skin kind of advancement. It doesn't really show anything about. Okay, you have big malls. Okay, you have a Gucci store. All right, doing big deal. I went to Gopal, you go to Gucci. Yeah. That's fine.
No,
but
the whole,
this civilizational aspect of it,
yes,
the fact that young people are at least realizing that we have a unique identity, and all the things that we considered to be bad or things we
I
need
think
to
there's a
move
lot
past.
more awareness.
There's a lot more
and
awareness.
I think that awareness has also come post 2014. Gradually, it has made itself. It's like people talk about it more often.
I wouldn't say after 2014. I think 2014 happened because of that. Okay. I think 2014 wouldn't have happened because you see fundamental changes. Now, look at the BJP government now. It is very different from the UPA government in terms of its stability. I know that they lost a few seats this time, but since 2014, that's pretty much 10 years now, it's pretty much the only party in town, right? Now that says something. People say, well, India is no longer a democracy and stuff, but that's not true, actually. The election, EVMs and stuff. No, that's not true. The thing is that while in the Congress and the UP, that was never the case. You never knew that if this part of UPA left, then they would fall, right? The second guy would come in. Now, this aspect is because of that revival that happened before 2014, and which has again sustained, so that you still have this. And if there's any success in the BJP's messaging, and I wouldn't just say it's BJP per se as the party, it's been this. We talked about its failures, but this has been one of its successes. And in any country, ultimately, a country has to recognize, any country has to come to terms with the fact that it has to be fundamentally majoritarian. The problem with the Nehruvian ideal is that it says the other thing, that no, the majority needs to step back, and that a good country, a moral country, is one where the first rights of privilege, to quote Manmohan Singh, goes to the minority. That is the right thing to do. So, what they're saying is that those that do not have numerical majority should be given first priority because of the fact that they do not have numerical majority. Now, that may be a very empathetic thing to say, that may be a very noble thing to say, but it is an extremely impractical thing to say, because no country in history has had this. And we've in India had the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus, which is an unheard of thing in any other country. Can you think of one country where the majority were genocided? That never happens, right? That never happens. Why doesn't it happen? If it's a random thing, it could have happened, but it's never happened. It happened because the fundamental nature of who we were was changed. It was an unrealistic, unstable configuration that actually has changed now. Yeah. So the discomfort that many people feel is the unapologetic majoritarianism that let's accept it, that makes many people uncomfortable, right? The liberal backlash that you see is because it makes it uncomfortable. But it is. So let me give you an example. When I first went to the US, the US is like held as an example of like what a country should be. I mean, before Trump came, this is now people could say, no, not US. I remember a professor of mine saying, in India, you drive the wrong side of the road. I said, no, we don't drive on the wrong side of the road. We drive on the other side of the road. This is a liberal guy. He's a university professor. So in America, it's the majoritarian viewpoint is so ingrained, and I'm not talking to a guy on the street, is that they put it's not left, right, it is wrong side. Okay, so it's wrong. It is morally wrong. I'm not saying he thought through it, but he says it's wrong. In the US, in India, we have holidays for all religions. We have Eid, we have this, we have Christmas. In the US, it's only Christmas, right? There's only Christmas. So if I want to celebrate Durga Puja, I will have to take a personal day off, which comes from my bank of holidays. But the Christian person doesn't have to do it.
Yeah.
Right? They don't apologize for that. They don't say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not secular. They don't say that. They say, well, you came to the US, nobody asked you to come here, nobody's asking you to stay here. So this is ingrained in the country itself. It is not as if, and I would say that, as a matter of fact, one of the reasons why Trump rose was that this majoritarian aspect of the country was sought to be Nehruized, basically, through the Kamala Harris progressive movement. And this is a reaction to that. This America Gone Crazy is a reaction to this secularization of America that they tried to do during the Obama years and after that, actually. So this problem, this fact that India, one of the things is, from a personal growth perspective also, one of the things that, kids today use a word called adulting. One of the things about adulting is coming to terms with yourself. So individuals have to do it and nations have to do it. So when you're young, you cannot, one of the things is you haven't discovered yourself. You don't understand who you are. You maybe watch a movie and think that is what love is. That is what career is. That is what happiness is. You don't realize what it is for you. So some people are happy traveling. Some people are happy staying home. Right? They don't want to travel. So once you reach a certain age, you come to terms with who you are. Just like that, a mature nation comes to terms with who they are. And they don't apologize for it. This is the way I am, पसंद है तो है, नहीं तो है तो नहीं है. I'm not going to change because of you. When you're young, you try to change because you're insecure, right? You're always like the fashion. Oh, ad says this, I need to do this. Bell bottoms are out, I will not wear bell bottoms anymore. Oh, my dad's clothes I won't wear. When you grow old, you think, no, I don't really care what you
Okay,
think.
exactly.
I like this, it's comfortable, I'm going to wear it.
Yeah. Arnab, this has been such an interesting conversation. We've spoken about so many things, and I'm sure our viewers will love listening to you. Thank you for doing this for
Thank you
us.
for having
Thank
me.
you for taking the time out and coming to the organizer office. And I'm going to wish you all the best for your book and for your future projects.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Sharmi.
much.